This week on This Thing, the 4 letters that could break Canada. Bonjour Canada, welcome to This Thing, Quebec politics with an accent. This week we're going to start digging into why Quebec politics should matter to the rest of the country over the next 12 months. It's a story about renaissance, it's a story about the future. Some would say back to the future. Like any good story, it starts with strong characters, heroes and villains. As it should, let's start with the main character. Hero for some, villain for others. He goes by PSPP, the 4 letters that could break Canada. Paul St-Pierre Plamondon is the leader of the Parti Québécois, the sovereigntist party that wants to make Quebec a country. In this episode, who is Paul St-Pierre Plamondon and why is he the most important Canadian politician over the next 12 months? Here are the 3 main reasons I think why Paul St-Pierre Plamondon matters over the next 12 months. Reason number 1, Quebec elections are less than 1 year away and the Parti Québécois and Paul St-Pierre Plamondon are leading in the polls. They have been leading for quite a while. It is quite the turnaround. Which means one thing. A year away from the election, the Parti Québécois is in position to win a majority government and have a sovereignist premier at the head of the province. As you can see, the poll for the Parti Québécois fluctuates between 38 to 32 more recently. A slight decrease, but still ahead of the second place Liberal Party at 27. Seems close. But what we need to understand in Quebec politics, the most important demographics are the Francophones. Francophones are about 77% of the population and a majority of the ridings in Quebec. About 80% of the ridings are a majority Francophone. So leading among that demographics makes you or breaks you. So if we look at the Francophone numbers, you can see that the Parti Québécois is way ahead at 40%. The second closest is not even the second place Liberal Party overall, but the Coalition Avenir Québec, the present Premier's party. So that's why it's so important to look at those numbers and to see how the Parti Québécois could become the next government with these kinds of numbers. They don't have to be higher than this. At this stage, with these numbers, the Parti Québécois would become a majority government. The vote for non-Francophones is completely opposite. It's actually the Liberal Party ahead at 56% in this poll. Actually, that number seems a bit low. I expect that number to rise as we talk more and more about sovereignty in the next 12 months. But still, the main problem of the Liberal Party of Quebec, and it has been for a while, is among Francophones, and they need to address that if they want to challenge it for the next election. But that's going to be for the next episode. Another data point that's important to look at is the preferred premier. So in the latest poll, as you can see, Paul St-Pierre Plamondon is ahead of his opponents, 26% as the preferred premier, way ahead of Mr. Pablo Rodriguez at 16. You see the Premier Legault at 13. So not only that Mr. Plamondon's Parti Québécois is ahead in the polls, himself is the preferred premier of Quebecers, and that's no surprise that both those numbers correlate. Reason number 2, Paul St-Pierre Plamondon has the momentum in the polls, but also has the momentum in election results. Over the last 2 years, 3 by-elections in Quebec, 3 wins by the Parti Québécois, 3 flips in 3 different regions, and ridings that historically never vote for the PQ. That's quite impressive. That doesn't quite mean that all those ridings are sovereignist or all those electors are sovereignist. Usually by-elections are more about the current governing party than the opposition. But still, it's always nice to win. And plus, it sends a message that the Quebec electorate seems to see the PQ as the alternative to the current government. And if you look at those Francophone numbers, we can see why. Reason number 3, Paul St-Pierre Plamondon is the first sovereignist leader in 30 years to speak clearly about holding a new referendum. Not vague, not symbolic, very clear. Paul St-Pierre Plamondon has said numerous times over the last 5 years as a PQ leader that he will hold a referendum in his first mandate. That means that if the PQ takes power in 2026, there will be a referendum by 2030. And that's important. Now, one would say holding a referendum, is that a popular idea in Quebec? Yes, he's winning by elections, but is he winning because of the sovereignty or despite the sovereignty? That's an interesting question. Let's look at the latest polling numbers on sovereignty. As you can see, sovereignty is not that popular. It's about 32% in the latest poll. Now, 32% overall in Quebec means that among francophone voters, an important demographics to the Parti Québécois, we could say that it's around 40% of a yes. Now, obviously, every vote is equal, but in terms of sovereignty and momentum, it's important to look at the francophone numbers because that's going to fuel the movement. Who is Paul St-Pierre Plamondon? Let's take a look at the tail of the tape. Paul St-Pierre Plamondon is 47 years old. He's a lawyer, did his law at McGill. He holds a Master in Business Administration from Oxford University. He has notably worked internationally in Bolivia, in Belgium, in Sweden, in Denmark. He also, in the 2000, co-founded Génération d'Idées, a civic group aimed at encouraging youth involvement in public life. He was also a political commentator for several years on TV, also an author of several books. He voted yes in Quebec's 1995 referendum, but he wasn't involved in party politics for most of his adult life. He joined the Parti Québécois for the first time in 2016. When and why? Well, he joined in 2016 when he first ran for the leadership. That's quite odd, becoming member of a party to run for the leadership, but that's what he did, and that shows a bit of who he is and where he comes from. In 2016, he did lose that leadership race, but got recruited by the winner of that race, Jean-François Lisée, who is now a political commentator on TV, but that's another story. So Jean-François Lisée hired him as a special consultant. He did a consultation across Quebec, came back with recommendations that was adopted by the party to renew, remember, the PQ at that point is in the basement. It's not going well. So they have to renew their image, their offer. So that's what he did. And then after that 2018 election that put François Legault as premier for the first time, Jean-François Lisée left the leadership of the Parti Québécois, and in the leadership that followed, that's when Paul St-Pierre Plamondon won that leadership race. That was October 2020, in the middle of a pandemic. So he has been the leader of the Parti Québécois now for over 5 years. In the 2022 general election, that's the last election, Paul St-Pierre Plamondon won his riding of Camille Lorrain. That's a riding on the island of Montreal. But that win was a bit bittersweet, as the Parti Québécois only won 3 ridings throughout the election. Remember, there's 125 ridings in Quebec. The Parti Québécois only won 3 ridings with only 15% of the general population vote. And that's the lowest score since the PQ's foundation. So you can see where Paul St-Pierre Plamondon started with and where he is today. Finally, Paul St-Pierre Plamondon, on a more personal level, is a father of 3, is married, and also because of his international experience, he speaks 5 languages, which is quite impressive. Now, we know why it matters. We know a bit about the character, but what is it that he wants to do with Quebec? What is his plan? Well, the best way to find out is to listen to the guy. Let's go.
We are not wanting the independence just for the sake of it. We want independence because we're underfunding our public health system, because there's no future for the French language if the federal government puts and imposes policies that are unsustainable. So there are reasons for the project of independence. There are benefits, such as existing internationally and making our own negotiations with the US, with Europe. All those advantages, we are putting them forward in something called the Blue Book. And the Blue Book has just started, and I think I've mentioned on several occasions that we do politics at the Parti Québécois based on what we ought to do, not based on the most recent polls. So I expect those polls to fluctuate up and down in all the directions, but it will not change what we do.
Now, the point of this video was not to debate the merits or not of sovereignty, or even discuss the qualities or the flaws of the sovereigntist leader. The point of this video is to present and to introduce to Canada the characters that will be in play in the story of Quebec in the next 12 months. While Canada works on national grand projects, Quebec also is working on his national project. And that's the story we'll be following week after week. This is Distinct, Quebec Politics with an Accent. I'm Farouk Karim. À la semaine prochaine.